forces as well. Now, a couple ways to frame that is, first off, this strike in Sochi was around 600 kilometers from the front. That's a long ways for the Russian forces to have to defend. In fact, and it's not just the depth that this is happening, but the frequency that we're seeing these long-range Ukrainian strikes as well. So it's not just one every couple weeks, an airfield or a fuel depot or a rail hub gets hit somewhere inside of Russia. It's almost every day. In fact, just 2 nights ago, I was getting ready to put together a video on Ukrainian deep strikes, and the OSINT accounts that I follow online straight up lost track of the number of impacts. None of them were staggering or completely overwhelming in their impact, which is something Ukraine is going to have to work on when it comes to the payload or the quantity of munitions utilized in these strikes. But nonetheless, imagine that. We're 3 years into this war, and analysts that are spending all day, every day, trying to track some of this data said, I can't. There's too many impacts. Too many of these drones got through Russian air defenses. We can't even roll them all up right now. Now, I'm going to show the Russian TikTokers again here for a second because just love this. There's only been a few cases in the last couple years. This was, happened a lot at the beginning of the war, but definitely slowed down, where you've got people just proudly showing, like, look at what happened right here. And the Ukrainians are loving this type of footage to see what actually happened at that fuel depot. No doubt those 3 in that video will probably get a call or a visit from Russian authorities talking to them about OPSEC here in the near future. Now, when talking about the changing dynamic in the long-range drone strike, Russia still has the major advantage there because they have more air defense assets. And when you look at their long-range strike munitions, like the Shaheds or the Garans, they still have a longer range, much longer range, and a much larger payload. So when you look at the impacts from a Shahed-style drone versus some of these Ukrainian long-range drones, it's apples to oranges. The payload is just not there for Ukraine quite yet. So it does look like what we saw last night in Sochi was multiple drones getting through to strike the target. And you kind of need one or the other. It either needs to be one big munition to affect a lot of damage or a lot of smaller munitions. We'll see which one comes first for Ukraine, but that's clearly an advantage in the Russian favor at this point. One of the challenges that Russia is starting to experience more and more is they have a lot of territory to defend. Ukraine has a lot of territory to defend, and it's one of the reasons that Russia is able to, night after night, get at least a few drones and or missiles through. There is just not enough air defense, arguably in the world, to protect every single target in all of Ukraine. So decisions have to be made, and you protect key assets, not every square inch of territory. Russia has a lot more rail hubs. They have a lot more logistics nodes. They have a lot more airfields. They have a lot more oil refineries. They have a lot more everything. They have a lot more targets than there are in Ukraine. So Russia has to protect a lot more. And when these ranges of the Ukrainian drones go from 200 kilometers to 300 to 600 and beyond, it makes the area that Russia has to protect exponentially more difficult. And that's what we're seeing week by week here. It's really stretching the Russian air defenses, and it does seem, again to me, like this is a trend moving in favor of the Ukrainians. Still very much a Russian advantage, but that is settling out a little bit. Now, we did see a couple bridges get hit yesterday for the first time in a while, and there's some interesting aspects here. I want to start out with a Russian, or actually a Ukrainian strike, kind of carried out 2 different ways. This was a video put out, United 24 reported about this, saying a Ukrainian FPV drone destroyed a bridge over the Sada River in Russia's Bryansk region. The operation was carried out by the operations of the 1st Separate Territorial Defense Brigade. The strike took place after Ukrainian forces identified that Russian troops had mined the bridge, reportedly in preparation for a potential retreat route. And there was some speculation here whether this was Ukraine getting ready to go on the offensive, as in they're prepping the battlefield and making it difficult for Russian forces to either evacuate this area or reinforce in the event of a Ukrainian attack. It looks more and more like this was just opportunistic. Like this is going to make things a little more challenging for Russia inside of Russia, so why not? And if one FPV drone can bring down an entire bridge, go for it. Now, I do think it's worth showing the location where this strike took place to kind of give a bit of perspective here. This was up in Bryansk, so we've got live UA map pulled up on the screen here. Bryansk inside of Russia on the northern border of Ukraine, and this strike took place in the southwest corner, right along the border with Belarus. As we zoom in here, a little further, let's see, I think it was right in, yeah, here we go. this area right here. I believe this was the exact bridge that was taken out. So you can see if this roadway is severed, coming down here to the border area, it does have the potential to cut off a pretty significant group of Russian forces, or at least access to a relatively large area here. Again, makes it more difficult for Russian forces to reinforce, move in, or move out. I guess the idea there was at some point, that's pretty extreme measures to be taken for Russia if you think about it, to be so worried about Ukrainian forces moving 7 kilometers into Russian territory in the north by Bryansk that you're mining your own bridges. That's not super confident in their first few lines of defense there. But nonetheless, as we sit here today, there's no indications that Ukraine is putting together some mass offensive here in the Bryansk region. Maybe that ends up happening. This would be something that could be looked upon as a shaping type operation, but to me right now, this does look more opportunistic than anything. Nonetheless, pretty interesting video of seeing what a dozen TM62 landmines strapped up underneath a bridge and then taking an FPV right on the nose. Now, another one here that I wanted to highlight was the Russians actually went after a bridge in Kherson. And for starters, actually, let's go straight back to the map before playing. We've got quite a few videos here, but I want to show you where this took place to provide some context. So zooming out and going to the exact opposite side of the country down here in Kherson. So this is the green here is Ukrainian-controlled territory, the red Russian-controlled territory. And when we zoom into the city, the strike appears to have taken place. Let's get, it was right in this bridge right here. I believe this is the bridge that was hit that we'll show the footage of in a second, which means that this island chain here is now cut off. So it doesn't appear there's any other crossings, or at least not directly from Kherson. You might